Hello, beautiful soul. Yes, you, the one who just pressed play. Before we begin, I want you to know something important. You're meant to be here. You didn't find this story by accident. And maybe this story found you. Welcome to Diary of Abandoned Souls. This isn't just a channel. It's a sanctuary, a shelter for the invisible. And every time you're here, every time you choose to listen, you breathe life into one more forgotten heartbeat. You see, we don't tell fairy tales. We tell truths, quiet truths, gentle truths, painful truths, truths wrapped in wet fur, shaky paws, and silent cries. And me? I'm just a groomer. But over time, this little grooming salon of mine turned into something else. It became a place where stories poured out, not from mouths, but from eyes. Eyes that had seen too much, tails that didn't wag, hearts that had given up. So many dogs pass through our doors, each carrying a silent diary. And some of them leave their stories behind. Stories we now tell. For you. For them. For all of us who've ever felt tossed aside. Tonight, I want to tell you about a dog who was never given a name. Not until we found him. He was just tied. Not to a person. Not to love, but to a tree. In the rain, he didn't bark. He didn't growl, he just waited. This story isn't easy, but it's important because it's real. And if you've ever held your own pet just a little closer after hearing a story like this, then you've already made the world better. So let's begin softly. Let's begin in the rain. Have you ever stood still in a storm? Not because you had to, but because you had nowhere else to go. That's where we found him. Or maybe that's where he waited for us to arrive. His fur was soaked through. It clung to his ribs, each breath a shallow echo under skin and bone. The chain around his neck had rusted. His paws sunk into the mud, unmoving. His eyes looked like they had already said goodbye. He didn't flinch when we approached. He didn't move. He just blinked once. And in that single blink, 1,000 stories cried out. You see, abandonment isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just a dog tied up in the rain, and while the world kept spinning, people laughing, doors closing, engines roaring, he just waited. For what? He didn't know. But he believed. And sometimes belief is the only thing that keeps the soul from breaking completely. I remember the moment we first saw him. I was closing up the salon. The scent of wet fur and lavender shampoo still clung to the air. I had just swept the last clump of matted hair from the floor when the phone rang. A neighbor, a whisper. There's a dog tied to a tree. He's been there all day. It's raining hard. I can't go to him. We dropped everything. No scissors, no brushes, just a towel, a leash, and our hearts in our hands. It wasn't far, just a short drive. But that night, the road felt endless, as if time itself was stretching, testing us. Asking, will you show up? Will you truly see him? Sound effect car engine fades into rain. When we arrived, the world was gray, the kind of gray that seeps into your skin. And there he was, still, so still. He could have been a statue, carved in grief. I approached slowly, careful not to startle him, but he didn't even lift his head. Instead, he sighed, not a whimper, not a growl, just a soft exhale. And I knew he had surrendered, not to us, but to the rain, to time, to the silence that follows after too many broken promises. I knelt beside him, the mud soaked through my jeans, cold and unforgiving. I reached out, not to grab, but to be near. And that's when he looked at me, not with fear, not with hope, but with acceptance, as if saying, if you're going to hurt me, just make it quick. And that moment shattered me, because no creature, no soul, should ever expect pain first. Do you know what it feels like to realize you've become someone's last chance? It's not heroic. It's humbling. It's terrifying. Because now it's on you to prove that not all humans leave, not all hands hurt, not all chains stay locked. So I unhooked him, gently, slowly, like you'd free a memory that's been buried too long. And he didn't run. He didn't bark. He just leaned, just a little, just enough for me to feel his weight. Not his body, but his trust. And that was the beginning, but not of healing. No, healing takes time. This was the beginning of possibility. The possibility that even a dog tossed like trash could learn to feel like treasure. So I wrapped him in the towel, lifted him into the car. He didn't fight. He didn't resist. He just let go. And maybe, for the first time in a long time, he felt safe. We drove home in silence. The kind of silence that speaks louder than words. The kind where you can feel two souls beginning to align. And in that darkness, lit only by headlights and raindrops, I whispered the only thing I could think to say. You're not trash. You are never trash. You're someone. You're loved. So tonight, as you listen, I want you to remember something. There are thousands of dogs still out there, waiting, watching, tied in the rain, both outside and inside their hearts. And maybe, just maybe, your presence here is one small step toward untangling one more leash. Because stories like his aren't just for sadness. They're reminders to look, to notice, to care. Thank you for being here, truly, from the bottom of my heart and his. Stay with us. It began like any other day, a ride in the back seat, the smell of the road, the rhythm of tires humming beneath. A hand reached back once, ruffled his ears. He wagged his tail, unsure but hopeful. Dogs are like that. They don't need much. A glance, a word, a moment. That's enough to believe everything is still okay. But sometimes belief isn't enough. He didn't know where they were going, but it didn't matter. He was with them. The people whose scent he knew better than his own heartbeat. The voices he learned to interpret before he even understood their meaning. To love humans is a risky thing, because they leave, and dogs stay. The car stopped. It was a strange place. No buildings, no grass. Just trees, tall, wet, and silent. He perked up, tail swaying. An adventure? The door opened. The leash clipped on. He jumped out, excited, trusting. They walked him a few feet in, deeper into the woods, deeper into silence. And then they stopped. He looked up. She didn't speak. She just looked down at him, eyes wide, still, distant. Her hands moved strangely, fast, trembling, undoing the leash, tying it to the base of a tree. Loop, pull, knot. He tilted his head. Was this a game? Was she leaving for a moment? Was someone else coming? But her hands wouldn't meet his fur. Her voice never said goodbye. She stood, turned, walked away. He barked once, a soft, confused sound. Then again, louder, hesitant, pleading. He strained against the leash. It didn't give. He barked again and again, until the sound was swallowed by the engine driving away. And then, nothing. He sat down, looked left, looked right, listened. Every instinct told him, wait, she's coming back. She wouldn't just, not like that. Not without a word, not without his toy, not without his dinner bowl, not without him. But hours passed. The sky grew heavier. Clouds sank lower. Raindrops began to fall, soft at first, like whispers, then harder, then relentless. He didn't understand. Dogs don't understand why. They just remember who, and his who was gone. He curled himself tight, mud caked under his belly. The chain scraped against bark every time he moved. And so, he stopped moving. He watched the road, eyes dry even in the rain. Because sometimes sadness doesn't look like tears. It just looks like waiting. He waited that first night, shivering, still believing. Every crunch of a branch, maybe it's her. Every flash of headlights, maybe it's him. Every sound, maybe. But maybe never came. The second day was colder. His stomach growled, but his heart hurt louder. He began to lose strength. His legs wouldn't stretch like they used to. His ears drooped not from rain, but from defeat. And the chain? It stayed. Tight, rusted, real. He began to forget how long he'd been there. The sun rose. The sun set. The world moved. And he stayed. The birds sang, then stopped. The leaves turned, then fell. Seasons shifted, but no one came. The strange thing is, he never stopped looking. Even when his body weakened, even when his eyes dulled. He kept watching. He kept hoping. Because dogs do not abandon, even when they've been abandoned. I sometimes wonder what hurt him most. The hunger? The cold? Or the not knowing? Not knowing what he did wrong. Not knowing why he wasn't good enough. Not knowing when they stopped loving him. Or if they ever really did. They say animals don't remember the way humans do. But I don't believe that, because he remembered. Not in words, not in thoughts, but in silence, in stillness, in the space between every breath he took after she left. And yet, even then, a part of him still waited, even as hope frayed, even as the rain washed his scent into the ground, even as his leash wore grooves into the tree bark. He waited, not for food, not for water, but for someone to see him, really see him. And when we finally did, he didn't run. He didn't bark. He just blinked, once. And in that one blink was the entire story of being left behind. That's what this part of the story is about. Not the drama, not the shouting, not the car driving off, but the stillness that follows. The days that stretch long, filled with hunger, rain, and the ache of remembering. The leash that doesn't loosen. The sound of nothingness. And a soul tied not just to a tree, but to the memory of being loved once, and then time is different when you're waiting. It doesn't tick. It doesn't move forward. It folds. It stretches. It becomes something soft, and then something sharp. He didn't know what day it was. Dogs don't need calendars, but his body knew. His hunger knew. His heart, most of all, knew. Because waiting isn't stillness. Waiting is movement on the inside. At first, he waited like any dog would, ears perked, tail twitching. Eyes focused on the last place he saw her. Every time a car passed, his head lifted. Every time a twig snapped, his ears turned. Every shift in the wind, every echo of a voice. Maybe this was the moment they came back. Maybe she would kneel down, undo the leash, and say the words he still carried like a prayer. Good boy. But the road remained empty. The footsteps never returned. The leash remained. Days passed, and the waiting changed. His ears stopped moving. His tail no longer twitched. Not because he stopped hoping, but because his body couldn't keep up with his heart. So he began to wait on the inside. Inside his ribs, there were memories, small ones, quiet ones, like the warmth of a blanket, the smell of toast, the feel of hands, sometimes rough, sometimes kind. And he held on to those, one by one, tightly, because memory, for a dog, is not a timeline. It's a feeling, and feeling, no matter how old, stay fresh. Even in the rain, he remembered being chosen, a trip to a shelter, a tiny bark, a little paw scratching at the gate, and then a hand. He had followed that hand his whole life. From the house, to the yard, to the car. He didn't ask where it went. He just followed. Because dogs don't need reasons. They just need presence. And then, suddenly, that hand was gone. And so, in the quiet, he began to question, was it something I did? Did I bark too much? Did I chew the wrong shoe? Did I not wag hard enough? His brain couldn't form those thoughts exactly, but his body could feel them. That's the thing with dogs. They don't ask why with words. They ask why with stillness, with lowered ears, with eyes that stop searching. But even in all that stillness, a part of him refused to forget her. He remembered the curve of her voice, the smell of her coat, the way she used to laugh when he rolled in the grass. He remembered mornings, the clink of a food bowl, the jingle of keys, the click of a leash. And even though his bowl was empty now, and the leash held him still, those memories kept him full in ways hunger could not touch. The world around him grew smaller. The tree was his sky. The mud, his blanket. The chain, his lullaby. He watched the leaves fall. He watched them return. He watched the sky cry, and the stars blink. Each time, he wondered, will today be the day? But the hardest part of waiting wasn't the hunger, or the cold, or the pain in his joints from never stretching fully. It was the slow erosion of self. Each day he became more shadow than dog, more memory than presence, more silence than bark, and still he waited. Because that's what dogs do. Not because they're loyal, not because they're trained, but because their hearts are made of something humans forget how to hold. Unquestioning love. Sometimes he dreamed. In those dreams, he was in a field, running, chasing wind. No leash, no rain, just light. And in the middle of that light, there she was, calling, arms open. And just as he'd run to her, he would wake up. The chain would tug, the cold would bite, and the dream would dissolve like mist. But he never stopped dreaming, even when he stopped barking, even when he no longer stood. Somewhere deep, he still believed in the warmth that once held him, and belief can be stronger than breath. One morning, after what must have been weeks, a butterfly landed on his paw. He didn't move, didn't startle, just blinked. As if even nature knew, here rests a soul too tired to chase, too noble to whine, too forgotten to fear. I think what broke him was not being unloved, but being unseen, because even a dog that's hurt can heal, but a dog that's invisible, he begins to vanish from the inside out. And yet, there was a flicker, a faint one. Not every day, not even most days, but some days, he would hear a sound different from the others, a car slowing down, a voice that didn't echo like the wind. And for a moment, just a breath, his ears would lift, his head would tilt, his heart would whisper, maybe. Because even when the body forgets how to hope, the heart remembers. And that tiny flicker is why he survived. Because even when we are tossed like trash, even when we are left in the rain, even when we are unseen, there is a part of us that refuses to go dim. That part waited, quietly, softly, and soon someone would see it. It began with something small, something so ordinary. It almost didn't happen. A wrong turn, a quiet road, a driver just slowing down. She wasn't looking for him. She didn't know his name because no one had ever given him one. She was just tired of the world, of noise, of never-ending screens and busy streets. So she took a side road, the kind that runs along the edge of the trees, where nature whispers louder than people talk. And there, In the blur of her window, she saw something. At first, she didn't even register it. Just a shape. Brown, still, a stump, a bag, but something in her gut pulled at her. That feeling, the one you can't name. But that doesn't leave you alone. She slowed down, braked, reversed. She stepped out of the car. The air smelled like earth, wet leaves, rain still hiding behind clouds. And there he was, tied to the tree, barely moving. Not surprised, not scared, just watching. Their eyes met, and the world, with all its rush and sound, went quiet. He didn't lift his head right away, just his eyes. He didn't expect anything. Not food, not rescue, not kindness. But he looked anyway, and in that glance was everything. Have you ever looked at someone and felt the air around you change? That was it. One look, and she knew he wasn't just waiting. He was almost gone. His fur was caked in mud, ribs visible, but not screaming, not seeking pity, just existing. His eyes held no challenge, no fear, only questions, unspoken, but loud. Why? Why am I still here? She took a step forward. He didn't flinch, didn't growl, didn't beg. He just watched, but not like a dog, like a memory that didn't want to disappear. I see you. She didn't say it out loud, but she thought it, felt it, sent it through the air between them. And maybe, somehow, he heard it because his breath changed. Just a little, not a gasp, not a sigh, just a soft intake of air, as if the world had given him one more breath to use. She knelt. The mud didn't matter. The rain didn't matter. Only he did. She didn't speak yet. Words felt too big, too heavy. So she just looked, let herself truly see him. Not the fur, not the dirt, not the chain, but the soul beneath all of it. And he blinked. A slow, uncertain blink, as if asking, is this real? Or am I dreaming again? She reached into her bag, pulled out half a sandwich. Not much, but more than he'd had in days. She held it out, not close, just enough. He sniffed, paused, looked up at her, then back at the food. He took a bite, carefully, gently. No greed, no fear, just a whisper of trust. And that whisper was everything. That's how it began. Not with a rescue, not with a hero, with a glance, a breath, a bite of bread. They stayed like that for minutes, maybe longer. Time, once again, became soft. Fluid. The chain clinked as he shifted. She noticed it. Her fingers twitched. She wanted to remove it, wanted to untie the knot, break the rust, let him run. But she waited, because freedom without safety can feel like falling, and she didn't want him to fall. So instead, she stayed. She sat, spoke gently, not words, just tones, little hums, soothing murmurs, a lullaby for a heart too tired to beat fast. He listened, not with ears, with his whole being. Noticed the lack of sharpness in her hands, the absence of demand in her presence. And slowly, his body leaned. Just an inch, just enough to say, I'm still here. She smiled. And it wasn't a big smile. It was one of those half smiles, the kind people give when they're about to cry, but don't. Because seeing pain and being seen through it are two different things. She reached again, closer this time, let her fingers touch the edge of the chain. Didn't tug, didn't pull, just held it. As if to say, I'm not here to take your leash. I'm here to earn it. And he didn't move away. The sky above them darkened. Rain threatened again, but they stayed. Two beings, one broken, one open, and something passed between them. Not words, not thought, just present, in presence, when pure is louder than rescue. When she finally stood, he didn't whimper, didn't panic. He just looked, still unsure, still tethered. But something inside him shifted. He had been seen. And sometimes, that's the first step toward becoming real again. She promised herself she'd return. She had to. You don't look into eyes like that and forget. You don't find a soul at the edge of the world and pretend you didn't. She walked back to her car, looked back once. He was still there, still waiting. But this time, he looked different. Not because he had changed, but because someone had looked and not turned away. After she left, the world didn't look different. The tree was still there. The chains still tight, the mud still cold. But something had shifted. It wasn't in the ground. It wasn't in the air. It was in him. For the first time in forever, he didn't look at the road with desperation. He looked with possibility. He could still smell her, faint lavender. Fingers that had brushed air near his ear. Eyes that didn't demand, eyes that listened. His body trembled, but not from the cold. It was something new, something dangerous. Hope. Hope is strange in a creature that's been abandoned. It doesn't come back loud. It tiptoes. It knocks once and waits. He didn't run, couldn't, but in his chest, there was motion. Tiny pulses, tiny feelings. He lay down slowly, curling around himself, not out of defense, but to hold something fragile inside. He wasn't sure what to do with the feeling, didn't know where to place it, where to file it next to hunger, silence, rain. But he knew it mattered, because it didn't leave when the wind changed. It stayed, warm and still, and then there was her, driving home with shaking hands, mouth dry, eyes hot. She didn't understand what had just happened. It wasn't just a dog. It wasn't just pity. It was like finding a part of yourself in the woods, tied dirty and still waiting for someone to notice. She kept seeing his eyes, how they didn't beg, didn't plead, just asked one quiet question. Are you real? She sat in her car long after she parked it, engine ticking, silence humming. Her heart hurt, but not in the usual way. Not like heartbreak. It was something deeper, a recognition, as if something sacred had passed between them, something wordless, something holy. She knew she had to go back, but she also knew she couldn't just show up. She had to earn him. Earn that tiny flicker of trust before it collapsed under the weight of too many, almost. That night, neither of them slept well. He with one ear twitching at every sound. She with every image of his stillness burning into her chest. Two beings, miles apart, connected by one silent thread. I saw you. The next morning, he woke before the birds. The hunger was worse, but the ache for her was louder. He looked toward the road, not frantic, not desperate, just waiting. But this time, his tail didn't curl tightly. It stretched just a little, enough to catch a breeze. And she was already packing, not food, not treat, but softness, a blanket, a scarf that still smelled like her, a bowl of water, and something more important than all of that, her decision. This wasn't just an impulse. It was a vow. I'm coming back. And this time, I'll stay long enough for you to believe it. When she arrived again, he was sitting up, not standing, but not curled either, just present. Their eyes met again, and there it was, recognition. The world didn't cheer. The trees didn't move, but in that stillness, something bloomed. She approached slower this time, not cautious, respectful. And he didn't move, but his eyes did. They followed her, held her, like a thread being rewoven. She sat beside him again, close, but not too close. Pulled out the bowl, the blanket, unfolded her scarf, and laid it near his paws. He sniffed, closed his eyes for a moment, then reopened them, and his chest rose, a deep breath. Maybe his first full one in weeks. She talked this time, not commands, not baby talk, just voice. steady, calm, human, telling him about her day, about her dreams, about how sorry she was. Not for him, but for the world. For every hand that hurt instead of helped. For every chain that wasn't broken. He didn't understand the words, but he felt the shape of her voice. And that was enough. Because healing doesn't start with understanding. It starts with feeling safe enough to stay. She reached out again, held the leash lightly, not to pull, to witness it, to say, I see the thing that binds you, and I will never tighten it. And that's when it happened. The smallest movement, barely there. He leaned, not much, just enough to press the side of his body into her leg. There wasn't trust, not yet. It was consideration, the first step to feeling again. She felt it, every inch of that leaning, and her chest broke wide open. Because when a soul that's been tossed away chooses to touch you, that is love, in its purest form. They stayed that way for a long time. No rush, no promises, just being, two beings, each holding the broken edges of the other. And in that space, he began to feel things again, warmth, safety, the rhythm of her breathing. And she began to believe again that maybe kindness could rewrite endings. There are moments in life that don't feel like they belong to time. They don't tick. They don't pass. They settle, like dust on sunlight, like a sigh that never needed words. This was one of those moments. She sat beside him again. Third day, same tree, same chain, same sky, but nothing was the same. Because today, she was ready, and so was he. He had started to lean the day before, not quite touching, not quite retreating, just resting his weight somewhere near her presence. And she had felt it. Every tremble, every shift, every ounce of courage it took to let go, even a little. That morning, she brought only one thing with her, a blanket. It wasn't special, just soft, familiar, something that could carry scent, comfort, memory. She laid it out slowly, not in front of him, but beside, an invitation, not an instruction. He sniffed it cautiously, then looked at her, eyes uncertain, but no longer empty. That flicker, that dangerous little flicker called hope. It was burning again. And this time, she moved. Not fast, not sudden, just a shift of her leg, just a turn of her shoulder. And then, she reached out her hand. He saw it, didn't move away, didn't bark, didn't tremble. He watched it come closer. Felt the air change around him, felt her intention before her fingers arrived. She didn't reach for his head. That would have been too much. Too soon, she reached for the chain. Let her fingers curl around the rusted metal. Let her skin feel the cold that had held him for so long. She didn't tug. She didn't try to remove it. She just held it. And in that touch was a promise. Not yet, but soon. Then she moved her hand, gently, slowly, and let it rest just beside his paw. Not touching, not forcing, just near. He stared at it, long, still, and then he moved, barely. His paw caked in dried mud, tired from standing in one place too long, shifted forward, and touched her fingertips. Not fully, not confidently, just a graze, a whisper of contact. But to her, it was thunder. It was the crack in the wall, the sun through the fog, the first drop of forgiveness. She didn't cry, not with tears. She cried with stillness, letting the moment breathe, letting it settle. He pulled back, just a little, not out of fear, out of awareness, as if to say, I'm trying. Please, don't rush me. And she didn't. She stayed, hand where it was, breath steady, heart open. Then, something miraculous. He moved closer. Not fast, not bold, just enough to let his shoulder brush her thigh. And then, he lay down, half on the blanket, half on the earth, fully exposed. It was the first time he'd lain down like that in days. Maybe weeks. Not curled, not defensive. Just down, open. She moved again. This time, her hand hovered over his back, paused, asked without asking. And when he didn't flinch, she let it fall, softly, fingers in matted fur, palm against thin ribs. He sighed, a sound not made of exhaustion, but release. It wasn't comfort yet. It wasn't peace, but it was a beginning. And in that moment, they both understood something ancient, that trust is not given. It is allowed, and when it comes in pieces, like a puzzle being placed by hands that no longer shake. She stroked him once, just once, and waited. He didn't move, so she did it again, this time slower. And with every pass of her hand, he softened. His muscles stopped bracing, his breath deepened. His body, which had been a fortress of fear, began to become his again. And in her chest, the ache turned to purpose. This wasn't just rescue. This wasn't just compassion. This was witnessing. Seeing someone come back to themselves. They stayed like that for a long time. She, on her knees. Him, beside her. The chain still wrapped around the tree. But suddenly, it felt weaker, like it didn't matter as much anymore. Because something else was forming between them. Something stronger than metal. Connection. He nuzzled once. Barely. But it was there. A silent thank you. Or maybe a silent don't go. She knew. It was time not to leave, not to rush, but to act. Her hand returned to the chain, this time with intention. He looked at her, not panicked, just alert. She placed one hand on his chest, the other on the clasp, and whispered, "Ready?" The sound of the leash unhooking was small, but in their world, it was a bell ringing, a gate opening, a wound beginning to close. He didn't run, didn't flinch. He stayed by her side. Because freedom doesn't always mean movement. Sometimes it just means you're not held anymore. She wrapped the leash, a new one, soft and blue, gently around her wrist. And for the first time in his life, he walked forward, not because he was pulled, but because he chose to follow. Some stories don't end. They shift. They breathe. They become something else. This one, the story of a dog once tied in the rain, isn't a sad story. Not anymore. Because what followed wasn't just rescue. It was rebirth. The ride home was quiet. He lay curled in the back seat, wrapped in her blanket, wrapped in something even warmer, a feeling he didn't have a name for yet. He didn't bark, didn't panic. He waited, but not in fear. In wonder. The road rolled by. Trees gave way to fences. Fences gave way to houses. The world was still spinning. But for the first time in so long, he wasn't standing still. When they arrived, she didn't rush him. She opened the door, sat beside him, and waited. Waited until he lifted his head. Until his paw twitched. Until his eyes scanned the space around them and found no threat. Just air. Just earth. Just peace. He stepped out slowly, like someone stepping back into their body after being gone too long. The grass beneath his feet was soft, Real, alive. And his legs, they remembered what it meant to walk freely, not run. Not yet, but move, on his own terms. She led him inside. Her home smelled of old wood, lavender, and warmth. He paused at the threshold, looked up, then crossed it. And in that step, he left his old life behind. The first thing she did was bathe him, not to clean, not to scrub away the past, but to welcome him into the present. She filled the tub with gentle warmth, lowered him in carefully, whispered softly as her hands moved through his tangled coat. "Good boy. You're okay now. You're safe." The water turned brown, then cloudy, then clear, like memory washing itself, like grief letting go. His body was still, but his heart, it moved. Every stroke of her hand was an apology from the world, a lullaby for his bones. When she rinsed him, he looked up, and for the first time, his tail moved, not fast, not wild, just one slow wag, like a heartbeat rediscovered. She dried him with a towel, wrapped him like something precious. He didn't resist. He leaned in. She carried him to a soft bed, placed a bowl nearby, sat down beside him, and smiled. He looked at her, tired, open, home. That night, he dreamed again, but this time, he didn't dream of running. He dreamed of hands, of touch, of breath beside him, of warmth he didn't have to fear. And in the morning, she gave him a name, not a loud one, not a joke, a name chosen with her whole heart, a name that meant beginning. Lumen, it meant light, because that's what he had become, a light in the quiet, a flicker in the dark, proof that no matter how long a soul waits, someone somewhere might come. And us, we got to see it. We were there, not just to rescue, not just to witness, but to remember, because Lumen is not just one dog. He is every dog, ever left in the rain, every tail that stopped wagging, every heartbeat that waited in silence, every soul that believed just enough to stay. And to you, listening, thank you. Thank you for making space for this story. Thank you for letting him be seen. Cameron, on this channel, Diary of Abandoned Souls, we don't tell stories to break hearts. We tell them to open them. We are groomers, but more than that, we are guardians of stories, stories that are whispered into our hands while we untangle fur, clean wounds, and quietly say, "You're not alone anymore." If this story touched your heart, if Lumen found a home not just in her house, but in your memory, then please subscribe to this channel. We share true stories like this every week. Stories born from our rescue and grooming work. Stories meant to heal, connect, and remember. To leave a comment, tell us your pet's name. Tell us who you waited for. Tell us how you held on. Don't forget, you'll find the link in the description to our dog grooming channel, where we show the other side of this work, the makeovers, the care, the light. Because grooming is not just about beauty, it's about restoration. So tonight, or whenever you need it, come back, press play, close your eyes, and remember, there are souls in the rain, still waiting. And maybe, just maybe, you're the kind soul they're waiting for. Good night, Lumen.
Good night, dear listener.
And thank you for seeing him.